Praise be to Allah, and may peace and blessings be upon the Prophet and upon his family and companions and all who follow him until the Day of Judgment. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Weekly Iman Boosters and the beginning of the Dua series by ICNA Sisters. I want to start off by saying that I am really excited about this particular topic. Over the past few years, I've heard more and more of our scholars teaching us to focus on improving our du'as and being regular in making them because of the numerous spiritual benefits. So, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, Du'a is mukhul ibadah, which means that it is the essence of worship. And this is interesting because there are many acts of worship in the life of a Muslim, and they're all described in various ways. For example, prayer is the key to paradise, fasting is a shield, and sadaqah is qarud hasan, a goodly loan. But du'a is described as the essence of worship itself. And the reason for this is that because du'a nourishes our connection with Allah, it is the tool that gives life to all the other ibadat. And so we should strive to practice it as much as possible. In fact, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ encouraged the Sahaba to make dua for their every need, even the smallest thing like a shoelace. Now, some people might think that asking for small, insignificant things from the Lord of the universe is kind of silly, and that we should only ask for big and important things. However, what we need to remember is that our relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like that. Is unlike any other relationship that we have. Allah does not get tired of listening to our requests. It's not like you have only 3 wishes and so you have to choose wisely. There's no limit. There's no fear. Unlike the fear that you may have if you have to ask your boss for an extra day off, or the way our children might feel when asking for more TV or screen time. Allah is not going to say, why are you asking me again for something today after I just listened to your dua yesterday? Allah is the most compassionate, the most generous, and He is always listening to us. So we should not feel shy to ask. In fact, we should feel shy to not ask anything from Allah after He has reassured us that He will answer us if we only call on Him, as He did in Surah number 40, verse number 60. And the more we call on Him, the more we understand our utter dependence on Him, and the more we increase in our gratitude to Him for our blessings. But this understanding is not enough. What we have to do is form a habit of asking Him, and to strive for a constant state of making dua and communicating with our Creator, because that constant reminder of our relationship to Him will help us put everything else in our lives in perspective. We will try our best to remember that Allah is in control of everything and that nothing happens without His will. And then we will be able to face our triggers with a renewed sense of hope and strength. It will give us the energy that we need to push forward and put in our efforts where they're needed, rather than allowing negative emotions to sap our strength. Because when we make dua, we must also follow through with constant tawakkul and effort. Dua is not just a few rushed words that are said hastily without paying attention to what we're asking or of whom we're actually asking. It requires us to change ourselves and to sustain that change through mindfulness and prayer. But what if we're in a situation where we really are helpless to do anything? Let's say it's a difficult situation at work or at home with family or relatives, in which you really can't do anything but just wait for the storm to be over. Well, we can remember the story of Yunus alayhi salam in times like this. In Surah As-Safat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in verses 143 and 144 that had Yunus alayhi salam not been amongst the musabbihin, those who glorify Allah, he would have remained in the belly of the fish until the Day of Judgment. Now, for however long he actually was in the belly of the fish, just imagine the utter helplessness of the situation and how difficult each passing moment must have been. In this time, the only comfort he had was in the words, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. There is no God except you, glory to you, Indeed, I have been amongst the wrongdoers. Allah mentions Yunus alayhi salam's dua in Surah Anbiya verse 87 as well. And then in verse 88 he says, "So we answered his call and delivered him from the distress that he was in, and thus do we deliver the believers." So some scholars have said that this verse, verse 88, it means that anyone, any believer who says this dua will be relieved from whatever difficulty they made this dua for. And we are all at times swallowed by a fish that we cannot see, but we can feel. For those times, we can turn for guidance to the example of Yunus alayhi salam, as well as the example of other people and prophets whose stories of perseverance have been narrated in the Quran. So, can making dua, constant dua, actually change our lives? Simply put, yes. It can radically change our perspectives and therefore our lives by Allah's will. It will revitalize our relationship with Allah, and it will put khushu' in our prayers. It will help us control ourselves while we're fasting. It will purify our intentions while doing any good deed. And this strengthened relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become the medium through which we interact with all those around us. It will help us be the best versions of ourselves and to embody the best qualities that we believe in. Because just like we love for Allah to listen to us, we should try to listen to the people in our lives, even it may in fact be very difficult. But again, we don't have to do any of these difficult things relying on ourselves. We can make dua to Allah to ease our difficulties, by saying something like, "Ya Allah, I love it when I pour my sorrows and my difficulties out to you. So give me the patience that I need to listen to and to help others, even if they are communicating their needs in a way that I dislike." And I find that when I rely on Allah, it's easy to think of helping others. It's only when I rely on myself that I feel overwhelmed, and I think that I cannot respond to others with a generosity of spirit. And I'm also reminded of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's example when he heard the verse of Surah Nur, verse number 22, stating, "Do you not love it that Allah forgives you?" And when he heard this, he immediately forgave somebody who had deeply wronged him. That desire for your dua to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you ask Him for forgiveness or for anything else is a very powerful motivator in bringing about change in our lives and in the ways that we interact with those around us. I would like to add that none of what I just said means that we should not have boundaries. I found that making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during difficult situations has often helped me set appropriate boundaries, which is something that honestly I personally am not very good at. And maybe it's because I wasn't making as much dua as I should have. Also, I'd like to emphasize the importance of putting aside our phones when listening to others, especially our children. And this is a reminder to myself first. It's true that nowadays most of our work and, some entertainment, of course, is done on our phones. But making a short dua like, "Ya Allah, you know how important it is for me to get this work done. Help me get it done despite the interruptions." Something like this reassures my heart that everything is in Allah's hands and that I will inshallah be able to get everything done. And that has a very positive impact on the way I respond to my child or to any other interruptions I might face. So these are just some, common general examples that I face and that maybe you face as well. But there may be other challenges regarding health or finances or relationships where we are so caught up in the stress of the situation where it seems that the difficulties just come one after the other that we may actually forget to make dua before reacting. It is never too late to change our habits or to change the patterns that we've fallen into and start making dua and spend time doing dhikr and reflecting. But proactively dealing with these difficulties is to call on Allah during the times when things are calm and to get used to doing this. Because when we're making dua for a shoelace or something seemingly insignificant, what we're actually doing is we're also indirectly asking Allah for the kind of intimate relationship with Him that makes calling out to Him a habit. And that makes relying on Him a habit during those overwhelming moments. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who remember Him often and call out to Him constantly and call out to Him before reacting. Ameen. Now, before I end, I would like to mention a specific type of difficulty that maybe isn't discussed as much because of the shame surrounding it, specifically the difficulty in worship. Now, we don't like to admit that we struggle in praying on time or struggle with khushu' in our prayers. And alhamdulillah, there are many talks about the importance of prayer and how to build khushu' in salah already, so I don't need to get into that. All I would like to say is that dua is also one tool that can help. One thing I like to do is to admit to Allah how much I'm struggling. Because Allah already knows the condition of my heart, so it's not like I can hide anything from Him. So I will openly admit, Ya Allah, tonight I am really exhausted for reasons that You know too well. Only You can give my body the strength to perform Isha. Please grant me this prayer so that I may show gratitude to You. And just taking a moment to say this really, really helps. And yes, sometimes I have to say it a few times, but ultimately what happens is that my perspective shifts from I have to do this to Allah is my helper in all things. And by His mercy, I am able to perform my prayer or do whatever it is that, I needed to do. Alhamdulillah. Now, there are certain etiquettes of making dua, and each of these should be done with concentration and mindfulness, of course. So, for example, when we begin, we should start by saying hamd. We should start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, really take the time to praise Allah for His greatness and thank Him for His favors upon you. And just really allow yourself to feel this in your heart. And second, we send salat and salam on the Prophet ﷺ. So as you do this, as you're sending prayers of peace to the Prophet ﷺ, allow your heart to fill with love for him. And remember how much he loved us, that, he told his Sahaba who were with him through all the difficulties that he had endured, that we who believe in his message without having met him are his brothers and, sisters in our case. So remember that, call that to mind as you're sending du'as to the Prophet ﷺ, and let your heart fill with love for him. So that was the first two things. The third thing is to have sincerity of faith, ikhlas in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as certainty that the dua will be answered. So remind yourself of Allah's might and compassion, and don't let doubt enter your heart. If you do, however, feel doubt, seek refuge in Allah from it. Like if you ever feel doubt that, will Allah answer my dua? Will I find a way out of the difficulty that I'm in? Seek refuge in Allah from that. And then finally, make your dua and then end your dua with hamd, and again, prayers upon the Prophet. And it is preferred that when you make dua, that you are in a state of wudu, that you raise your hands, that you face the qibla. But again, these are just things, these are kind of like extra things that you can do that would be good to do. There are also certain times when dua is certain to be accepted. So these are the times that you should aim for if you have something specific, something special that you are asking for. These include the last third of the night, the time between adhan and iqama, the time right after your first prayer, at a time when it's raining. In addition to this, the prayer of a parent for their child is accepted. The dua of a traveler is accepted. A person who's fasting while they're fasting is also accepted. The mere fact that there are so many guaranteed opportunities to make a dua that will be accepted shows us the generosity of our Creator. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who call upon Him with love and hope, and may He accept our du'as. Ameen. Jazakumullah khair for listening. Assalamu alaikum.